When you're in a rut in Major League Baseball, sometimes it just takes one grinded out win to turn things around. And the Orioles hope that that is the case after the W in Chicago on Monday. I'll recap it coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Tuesday, April 7th, 2026, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Just head to FanDuel.com to get started. So the Orioles finally got a win again on Monday night, 2-1 in Chicago against the White Sox. We'll recap that win, talk about Brandon Young kind of stepping up and coming out of nowhere to help will the Orioles to that victory despite another disappointing offensive performance. We'll talk about why Brandon Young was the one who got Monday's start and what it means for the Orioles rotation and the bullpen moving forward. But we begin with the W on Monday night. After the O's had lost all three, they were swept in Pittsburgh. They had lost 5 of 6 going into the series in Chicago. They grind one out. They hold on at the end for a 2-1 victory over the White Sox on the South Side on Monday night in game 1 of a 3-game set, getting the Orioles to 4-6 through 10 games on this 2026 season. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles' victory on the road on Monday night. The first thing you need to know is Brandon Young stepped in and did pretty much everything you could have possibly asked him for on Monday night. I mean, we'll get to it more later, why Brandon Young was even called up to start this game on Monday instead of the Cade Poviches, Albert Suarez's, Dean Kramers of the world, who we figured would have replaced Zach Eflin the first time around. But it was Brandon Young, who had only thrown 57 pitches in his first start in AAA back on Wednesday. So we knew he wasn't going to pitch deep into this game, especially with the top of the order due up for the third time in the 6th inning. Taking Young out after 5 innings, faced guys twice through in the White Sox order. I thought that was the right decision. But he gave him everything. 5 scoreless innings for Young on 2 hits, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, 66 pitches for the Oriole right-hander. And it was exactly what this rotation needed, which really hasn't gotten a whole lot from guys not named Trevor Rogers so far this season, although Shane Baz was really good over the weekend. The O's needed something. And if his limit was around 70 pitches, which it probably was after 57 5 days ago, you can't ask for much more than 5 scoreless innings from Brandon Young. The fastball command teetered a little bit. You don't love that he walked the leadoff batter of the game on 5 pitches. I thought we were getting more of the same from Young last season, but he settled down. It was better than we saw last year. He has a new sinker, which he used. That was, I think, good to see. It's a pitch that should help him out against righties. He's tended to be a guy, because of the 4-seam fastball splitter combination, actually gets lefties out at a higher clip. But, he threw 8 of his 66 pitches were that brand new sinker. It's not like he relied on it, but it's another weapon that he threw for a strike. Got 3 called strikes on it, and you like that. Now, he didn't miss bats, and that's not abnormal for Brandon Young. He doesn't do that much anyway. But for the spot that the Orioles were in, what they were asking from him was give us 5 innings and keep us in the game. And yeah, it's not the greatest offense in the world when he's facing the White Sox, but to give the O's 5 scoreless, I mean, you give a standing O for Brandon Young. I mean, between what Cade Povich did in long relief on Sunday and what Brandon Young did in his start on Monday, more than the Orioles could have asked for in those spots from those 2 guys. And it was huge, helping the Orioles to the victory. And the second thing you need to know from that victory is that the bullpen did its job and held on after Brandon Young left the game. Tyler Wells with 2 scoreless innings in the 6th and 7th, second consecutive appearance for Wells in which he pitched 2 scoreless out of the Oriole bullpen. A little bit shakier in this one than he was on Friday in Pittsburgh. He allowed a hit. He walked a batter. He got a little help from a caught stealing that was really just Derek Hill coming off second base, and a challenge that was overturned in the Orioles' favor in the 7th. That I don't really like that rule. I don't think that's the point of replay, to see a guy just barely come off the base after clearly swiping a bag and being called out. I don't love that, but shout out to Masson. That was by far the best camera angle they've maybe ever had on a game broadcast to show that Hill was actually off the base when Gunnar was tagging him for the second out of the seventh. But you'll absolutely take what the O's got there from Tyler Wells. Rico Garcia was nails again. 1, 2, 3, eighth inning, 10 pitches with a strikeout. He is still yet to allow a hit this season. He's throwing strikes. The fastball's got good velo, good run. The changeup's unhittable. He's tossing in the slider when he needs to. What a find. I mean, we'll see if he can keep it up over a full season, but what a find so far. And then shutout wasn't complete because Ryan Helsley came in for the ninth for the save, 2-0 lead, and he was shaky. Walks the first two batters. The command was all over the place, facing the middle of the White Sox order, walking Murakami and Vargas to begin the inning. Got a great play from Pete Alonso down the line for out number one. That could have been trouble and tied the game. And then Helsley kind of bears down, gets a ground out. The only hit he allowed was a little rinky-dink, infield single from Benintendi. But he strikes out Edgar Caro with runners on the corners and 2 down to preserve the 2-1 win. It wasn't pretty. It was 24 laborious pitches from Ryan Helsley, who, did give up the walk-off on Saturday in Pittsburgh, although Dylan Beavers could have made some better plays for him in left field in that game. He avoided hard contact and contact in general much better on Monday. It was just the command was the issue. I still trust Ryan Helsley as the Oriole closer, despite it not being pretty on Monday night. And sometimes, again, to get out of a losing skid, you don't need it to be pretty. You just need the W, and that's what the O's got. And the third thing you need to know is the Orioles got on the board in this game in the most Austin Hayes way ever. You're saying, Connor, Austin Hayes is no longer on the Orioles. That's right, but he did sign a one-year deal with the White Sox this offseason, and that is where he is playing. Got the start in left field in this one, had a single early in the game, but in the fourth inning, with 2 outs and Adley Rutschman at first, Tyler O'Neill at the plate hits a kind of a big looping fly ball that's curling down the left field line, and O'Neill thought it was foul. Like, he didn't run out of the box at first, and here comes Austin Hayes heading towards foul territory, and all of a sudden, he comes up limping. Something in the quad or the hammy or whatever it may be. Comes up limping immediately, can't get to the ball. It falls directly on the foul line. That's a fair ball. And good base running from Adley Rutschman is able to get in there and score from first to give the Orioles a 1-0 lead. Hayes, of course, is obviously injured, immediately leaves the game with the White Sox trainers. Kevin Brown kind of did him dirty on the broadcast by listing all the career injuries that Hayes had, mostly in his time with the Orioles. And I feel like we saw something like that every single season when Hayes was in an Orioles uniform. I can honestly say I'm glad he is no longer the Orioles' problem with the bouts of ineffectiveness and all the injuries he tries to play through, or the ones that actually put him on the injured list. It's that the Orioles have too much of that already with the guys who are currently on the team. It happens again to Hayes, but hey, you know what? It helped out the Orioles. I mean, obviously I don't hope it's some sort of long-term injury for Austin, but this is something that happens to him a lot, and you'll take the run. Now, should Tyler O'Neill have been standing on second base after all of that? Absolutely. He only got to first with a single because he didn't run out of the box because he clearly thought that ball was foul. He kind of walked back to home plate, then turned around and ran to first, and it did hurt the Orioles because the next batter, Ryan Mountcastle, poked a little soft hit single through the right side. O'Neill probably scores if he's at second base on that play. He did go first to third, but it could have made it a 2-0 Oriole lead. But if Austin Hayes doesn't come up limping, that ball probably, has a pretty good chance of being caught, and the O's don't get the first run anyway. So you win some, you lose some, and the O's have been on the wrong side mostly in their time from Austin Hayes' injury, so it's nice to get on the right side of one here from the papier-mâché body that is Austin Hayes. Fourth thing you need to know from Monday, Gunnar Henderson seemed to get a whole lot of frustration out with one swing. Now, he did strike out in his other 3 at-bats on Monday night, but the one where he did not was a big insurance run for the O's. Solo homer for Gunnar in the top of the 6th, put the Orioles up 2-0. He'd been fine so far, not Gunnar, but kind of fine at the plate. Getting a ton of changeups, like way more than he's ever gotten. And, he did have 2 homers already, but this one felt a little different off the bat. He was frustrated. Eric Fetty had already struck him out earlier. Fetty, who was kind of the follower after Grant Taylor, the opener, struck out Gunnar in the first. Eric Fetty is not a good pitcher. Gunnar just got a high cutter and ripped that thing high fly ball down the right field line, stayed fair for a solo shot. And listen, it was a good adjustment by Gunnar. His strikeout against Fetty a couple innings before was him swinging through a high cutter. He got basically the exact same pitch on a 1-0 count here and did not miss it to double the Orioles' lead. We all know they're going to need good Gunnar to win some ball games this year, and that was nice to see on Monday night. But the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 2-1 win over the White Sox on Monday is that Unfortunately, despite those two plays, it was still a disappointing night once again for the Orioles offense. I thought they had some good ABs actually in the first inning, right? Taylor Ward had the leadoff double, then the O's couldn't score, but they had a couple of rockets off the bat of Pete Alonso and Adley Rutschman in that inning, and it was Grant Taylor who was the opener for the White Sox, got some of the nastiest stuff of any reliever in baseball. Like, he should be the White Sox closer, even though they do have Seranthony Dominguez. Like, he should be their closer. He's really, really good. And the O's put some good at-bats against him. And then they saw Fetty, and it's not like they were completely helpless. They hit some balls hard. They got a couple of runs off it. But, like, to get only 2 runs in 6 innings against this version of Eric Fetty, who, yeah, when he first came back from Korea with the White Sox a couple of years ago was pretty good, but he was DFA'd a couple of times last year. He had a 5.49 ERA in 124 big league innings last season. He wasn't very good in his first start of the year. Like, he's just not a reliable big league starting pitcher at this point. And he's a guy who the Orioles should have teed off on. And instead, like, they weren't completely shut down, but it wasn't good. It really was not good. And it wasn't even around the area the last couple of games, even in the Pittsburgh series, where it was like the O's have taken some good at-bats and just gotten unlucky. Against Fetty, I didn't really feel like that was the case. They just did not look like they could put anything together against him. I mean, they had the one single multi-hit performance. It was Ryan Mountcastle who DH'd and hit 6, just his second start of the year in 10 games, because the Orioles are one of 2 teams that has yet to face a left-handed starting pitcher through 10 games this season, and that was going to be Mountcastle's role on this team off the bench to start against lefties. So I like that Craig Almernaz still just getting him into the game every once in a while to keep him fresh, but he went 2 for 3. It's just that Mountcastle's 2 singles were 2 little dribblers and squibbers off the end of the bat that probably shouldn't have gone for hits, but luckily for him, they did. And that was it. Like, they didn't get a lot else. They ended up with 7 hits. It was the Ward double and the Gunnar home run were the only extra base hits. Like, Jeremiah Jackson and Kobe Mayo and Tyler O'Neill, they each had themselves a single, but it's just, they're still not really walking. They only walked once. It was nice to not have them whiff as much. It was only 7 strikeouts in this game after 14 on Sunday, but it's 1 walk in their last 2 games. They're just, I don't know. It's a funk you got to get out of, and it helps to perform poorly and still win a game. That's the nice part of Monday. Maybe that can kickstart them going into the rest of this series, but it's still certainly not what you want to see from this Orioles offense. But I would argue that it was what you wanted to see from the Oriole pitching staff, specifically with Brandon Young, who I don't think many people thought was going to start this game on Monday, and yet he did. So we'll talk about why he got the start and kind of where the Orioles rotation goes from here without Zach Eflin after this. First, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, well, they're pretty much here. And where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about FanDuel. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. And the FanDuel app makes it really easy to follow the action, player stats, trends, matchups, all in one place. Just kind of makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. And listen, my team, the Wizards, not getting anywhere close to sniffing the playoffs. They really haven't for a while. But if you go on FanDuel right now, even though the NBA playoffs haven't quite started yet, you can start looking at some future lines, maybe somebody to win the championship that you like this year. If you think the Thunder are going to repeat, maybe another team takes the crown, you can get those futures over there as well. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel. Play your game. All right, so the Orioles, it's a win. It is a win. After a bunch of losses, you take the win. At 2-1, they get to 4-6 on the season. Didn't expect Brandon Young to be starting on April 6th, and yet here we are. Recalled Monday by the Orioles to start as Dietrich Enns was placed on the 15-day injured list with a foot infection. We will get to that a little bit more later. But because Enns went on the IL, it allowed Young to come up to the big leagues before the 15 days was up after he was optioned to begin the year. That timeline would have been up on Thursday, but he gets to to pitch on Monday. And Brandon Young, we knew he was going to start the year in AAA. He was just further down the depth chart for starting pitchers. He made his AAA season debut on Wednesday against the Cardinals AAA team, and he was solid. 5 innings, 1 run, 5 hits, 4 Ks, no walks. Only 57 pitches, though, but pitching Wednesday put him on regular rest to go again on Monday night. And again, 57 pitches in a start, that's not fully built up. So you couldn't expect a ton from him anyway. That's why he only went the 66 pitches in his 5 scoreless innings. But, I thought he looked good in his AAA start. He was sitting 93. Fastball had ride. He threw that new sinker 14 times, gave him something to throw against righties. And we saw something similar from Young on Monday night. Velo was fine. He had the solid ride on his fastball that you're used to. He was 93, 94, through the sinker, through the splitter, didn't really miss bats as we talked about, but he hasn't been able to land the splitter a lot, but still has a 6-pitch mix. And he's a guy who's a back end starter, right? If he's really on his game, and we saw some better command than we saw last season. Because remember, Brandon Young was really pressed into duty very early last year. He had to come up in April and start some games, not as early as April 6th, but in April, because the O's were just so injured and so bad in the rotation early last year. And he wasn't great. It was a 6.24 ERA in 12 big league starts last season. He did have his almost perfect game in Houston. He had his immaculate inning at home against the Mets, had some of the highest highs of any Orioles pitcher. Also had some of the lowest lows. Had some pretty bad starts in there as well. And he probably would have made a few more starts down the stretch, if not for a leg injury covering first on a play in August that ended his season. Now, it wasn't a super serious injury, so he was fine, had a normal offseason, but that took him away from a couple starts until he probably would have been sent down anyway when Wells and Bradish came back a couple weeks later from elbow surgery. But I guess the question is, the Orioles built up a lot more starting pitching depth in 2026 than, frankly, they had for 2025, and they still had to go to Brandon Young in April of 2025. So how did we only get to game number 10 of the season? You would have told me 2 weeks ago, Connor, 10th game of the year, Monday, April 6th, Brandon Young starts for the Orioles. It would have been difficult for me to concoct something in my brain, some scenario that would have led to that. If you would have told me 2 months ago, I would have said, okay, everybody got hurt in spring training. But if you told me 2 weeks ago, when the Orioles had finished spring training and all the starting pitchers were healthy, so healthy that they actually optioned Dean Kramer to AAA, surprisingly, to begin the year, there's really no scenario I could have thought up where Brandon Young starts the 10th game of the year. And yet here we are. And you got to give credit to him for stepping in, pitching well, going 5 scoreless, and really kind of willing the Orioles to win that game, which they really needed to do on Monday night. But how do they get here, right? Zach Eflin goes down with the elbow injury last Tuesday. He's getting a second opinion on his elbow right now. That's never good, because if you get a second opinion, that means you didn't like the first opinion. I think we can kind of feel where this is heading. Potentially, I would guess elbow surgery. I don't know anything, but I would guess we're heading to elbow surgery for Zach Eflin if we're all being honest with each other here. So it seemed like, Dean Kramer, who got option, was ready to go, would be the easy call-up. But the Orioles, the way they configured the roster moves after Eflin went down and then went on the injured list last week, they didn't do it in a way that would have allowed Dean Kramer to come up here early before waiting the 15 days. They call up Albert Suarez for long relief, and he pitches well for the Orioles on Wednesday, which would have put him on regular rest to potentially start Monday's game. And Monday was always the circled game because it was the first time that Eflin's spot in the rotation came up again after the injury, and it was a game they felt they needed a starter for. But then they call up Cade Povich on Sunday with Yarmil Geraldo kind of mysteriously maybe going on the injured list. And it seemed like, okay, Povich is going to be here and he's going to get the Monday start. He was on regular rest. He had started the game already in AAA. And then Chris Bassett is just horrible in Pittsburgh on Sunday, only able to last 2 innings, gives up 6 runs, throws over 60 pitches. And Craig Abernathy, trying to keep the O's in the game, goes to Cade Povich in the 3rd inning. And so now he's come into the game. He's pitching Sunday. There's no way he's starting Monday. Now, kudos to Povich for going 5 2/3 and allowing just 2 runs in relief. The Orioles bullpen desperately needed that from him on Sunday, but it obviously takes him out for Monday. So then I went back to Albert Suarez. I was like, okay, I guess it's going to be Suarez. He hasn't pitched since he threw the 3 innings in relief on Wednesday. He's should be fresh and ready to go. They shouldn't be expecting more than 4 or 5 innings from him, but he's here. And then Brandon Young appears, right? I mean, meanwhile, through all this, we were already confused on why Dean Kramer was not the guy. He makes his start, his first scheduled start for AAA Norfolk on Friday. He only throws 62 pitches and is removed from the game. And he threw more than 62 pitches in his final couple of spring training starts. So he was built up more than that. And it didn't look like there was any injury during the start for Kramer that made them pull him out of the game. It seemed like it was a scheduled pull, like once he got to 60 pitches. So that makes you think, okay, the easy move would have been set it up for Kramer to come up for Eflin. Instead, you pitch him and he only throws 62 pitches. To me, that screams not injury, but something bothering Dean Kramer, right? Maybe it was something right at the end of spring training or right when he got to Norfolk throwing bullpen, something bothering him where it's not anything where he goes on the IL or you have to shut him down for a little bit, but it's something where he just didn't throw for a couple of days, wasn't feeling right. And they felt like, hey, let's hold him to around 60 pitches to build him back up. Let's not have to rely on him in the big leagues right now because maybe something little is bothering him, right? Not bothering enough to skip a AAA start, just bothering him a little bit to push him back, make sure he's okay with a couple of AAA starts. That has to be the reality here because if Dean's not dealing with anything, even with as good as Povich was Sunday and as good as Suarez was last week and as good as Young was on Monday, kudos to all three of those depth guys. There is no excuse if Kramer was healthy for choosing to use any of the three of Albert Suarez, Cade Povich, or Brandon Young over Dean Kramer once Eflin pretty much immediately goes down with injury. So it's got to be something for Dean that he's dealing with. And hopefully because he did throw 60 pitches, he's fine and he's going to be built back up. But that's kind of how you get to using Brandon Young was your 8th starter coming into the year and you had to use him in game number 10, right? You had the 5 who made the team. Dean Kramer is 6, Cade Povich is 7, Brandon Young is 8, and you go to him in game 10. It's just absurd what is seemingly happening to this team. So now the next question is, okay, there's clearly some sort of question about Dean Kramer. Who's going to take the Zach Eflin spot in the rotation, right? You're going to go Trevor Rogers today, Kyle Bradish tomorrow, off day Thursday. Dean would be on regular rest even for Wednesday potentially or Thursday. They don't have a game or Friday, but maybe because he only threw 62 pitches in AAA Friday, they want to give him one more start with Norfolk to build him up further. That's probably the case. So you go Shane Baz Friday, Chris Bassett Saturday, Rogers can pitch again on Sunday, Bradish can pitch again regular rest on Monday. And then the next time you would truly need a 5th starter is next Tuesday, April 14th, a week from today at home against the Diamondbacks. By that point, you could use Dean Kramer because it looks like Kramer is going to start tomorrow, Wednesday, for the Tides, which would give him plenty of regular rest to be good to go next Tuesday for the Orioles. So that should probably be the goal. But if they don't want to push that, like they currently at the moment of recording, they still have both Cade Povich and Brandon Young on the roster. If you chose one, I would just choose Povich because I think he's better and has a higher ceiling. But obviously Young giving you 5 scoreless innings gives you a chance. Hopefully it would just be one start if these guys stick around. But both of them aren't going to stick around because they're kind of taking up bullpen spots right now. So the O's are going to have to figure that thing out too. What's the bullpen going to look like? Because quietly, both Enns and Geraldo went on the injured list this weekend. So how do they replace them later this week? That's to finish up the show.
Hey, this is Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, and when it comes to our futures, we all have great ideas when it comes to our job, when it comes to our house, when it comes to our vehicles, all that great stuff. But honestly, when it comes to securing that future, I don't know what I don't know. And when me and my wife sat down to figure out the life insurance thing, Ethos made everything simple. Everything's online, you have a quick and easy application process, and you find out exactly what you need for coverage all in one spot. Ethos makes everything so convenient when it comes to learning about your own life insurance because insurance is something that is far beyond batting average or on-base percentage. It's way out in left field for me. Ethos made it all easy. Take just 10 minutes and get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/lockedonmlb. That's ethos.com/lockedonmlb. Application times may vary and rates may vary.
So the O's have another question, and it's not just in their rotation, it's in their bullpen, right? Because to get Cade Povich here on Sunday and to get Dietrich Enns here on Monday, they needed to make moves that put guys on the injured list. Now, we have no word on Yarmiel Geraldo. He was placed on the IL with some shoulder soreness or inflammation on Sunday. That one could have been some sort of phantom IL situation. We really still haven't heard much. Dietrich Enns was a real IL thing. He had to go to the hospital in Pittsburgh with what the O's are calling a foot infection. They placed him on the 15-day IL on Monday. Alvarez said his foot was nasty or something. Like, hopefully he gets that all cleared up. That can be some tough stuff to deal with, so hope all is good there. But Geraldo might have been a little bit of roster maneuvering because, remember, you couldn't have gotten Povich or Young up here until Thursday because when you're optioned to begin the year, you got to wait 15 days before you can come back up unless you're replacing a player going on the injured list. And that's what they did with both Geraldo and Enns to get Povich and Young up here. But the thing is, even with Eflin on the IL, the O's have 6 starters. If you're counting Albert Suarez as a reliever, which I am right now, the O's have 6 starters on the team right now, right? You have the 4 who are definitely in the rotation at the moment, and that is Rogers, Bradish, Baz, and Bassett. And then you have Young and Povich, who, Young made a real start Monday. Povich made a pseudo start after Bassett going 5 2/3 on Sunday, which leaves your bullpen one arm short. So, I mean, one of Young or Povich could stay as the number 5 starter for a little bit if you're not, immediately ready to bring Dean Kramer up, which it doesn't seem like the Orioles are. But at least one of them is certainly going to go back down. So relievers who are on the 40-man roster, who were optioned to AAA to begin the year, those guys can come back for the first time, I believe, on Thursday. I believe it's Thursday that those guys can return. It might be Wednesday, but I think my math is right that it should be Thursday that those guys can come back. So the players you're looking at there are the likes of Jose Espada, Cameron Foster, are really the top 2 guys. I think Javian Sandridge is on that list as well, that they can come back Thursday. I would say right now, Thursday is also the day where the guys who began the year on the 15-day injured list can also come back. So that would give a chance for Keegan Aiken or Andrew Kittredge. Now, Aiken, we haven't really heard much about. He hasn't started throwing in rehab games. So Aiken is not going to be ready on Thursday. He's out of the question, at least for now. But Andrew Kittredge has thrown in 2 rehab games for AAA Norfolk. I would be willing to bet he's going to throw one more either Tuesday or Wednesday here for the Tides. And if he feels fine and he looks good after 3 rehab outings as a relief pitcher and a veteran at that, he could be totally ready to be activated to this bullpen on Friday. And your easy move would be either optioning Young or Povich to get your bullpen back to 8 players. Maybe you even utilize Young or Povich as a long reliever once they're rested enough again, and you go with the 4 starters you can do until next Tuesday when Kramer is ready. That's an option. Or you could get 2 fresh arms up here, right? Eventually, once you get past Wednesday, you can option both Young and Povich. You could get Kittredge off the IL, and you could bring one of those other arms up. I think most likely would honestly be Javian Sandridge. Orioles got him in a small waiver trade a couple of weeks ago, who is a left-hander. And with now Enns and Aiken on the injured list, you would probably like another lefty in the bullpen right now. And maybe Sandridge is that answer, along with, Albert Suarez being a righty, but kind of being another long relief option in the bullpen. But there is another guy now who that spot could go to, because late on Monday night, kind of right before I jumped on here to record after the game, the Orioles made another move. They acquired left-handed reliever Nick Riquet in a small trade with the Cardinals. Riquet, who was DFA'd by the Cardinals on Sunday, so I was probably sending cash over there in that deal, has pitched 2 scoreless innings for the Cardinals bullpen so far this year before being DFA'd. Riquet does have minor league options remaining, so it's not like he has to get the roster spot. He could just come here and go to Norfolk, so it doesn't have to be him that gets that final spot. But if the O's really like him, that could be a lefty that they put in the pen, at least for a week or so, until they get some guys a little bit healthier and see what they have in Nick Riquet. But I'll certainly have more on Riquet coming up on tomorrow's episode. We will also recap Game 2 between the Orioles and the White Sox. It is really freaking cold in Chicago apparently right now. So cold that a game that was scheduled for 7:40 has been moved up to 3:10 p.m. Eastern time to basically play the game in the sunlight when it's a little bit warmer. So we got a little matinee baseball coming up here on Tuesday. Trevor Rogers, who has been awesome so far, takes the ball for his 3rd start of the season. He goes up against the 26-year-old righty Shane Smith, who was a Rule 5 pick last year and was really good. 3.81 ERA and 29 starts for the White Sox. His first 2 starts this year have been a complete and utter disaster. First start opening day, 3 runs in an inning and 2/3. Second start last week against the Marlins, he gave up 7 runs in 3 innings. If the O's are going to jump on anyone, it's how poorly Shane Smith is pitching right now. Maybe this is the day that the offense explodes. And then I'm back tomorrow with a new episode. Again, we'll talk about Nick Riquet, the Orioles' new bullpen edition. We'll recap Game 2 of this series and get you any maybe roster manipulation updates on Povich and Young and others that we can. Until then, if you're liking Locked On Orioles, maybe check out the Everydayer Club, where you can get ad-free episodes of the Locked On Orioles podcast. You can get exclusive members-only Discord access to chat O's with me and other Orioles fans throughout the week, throughout the games that are being played as well. You can sign up using the link that's lockedonorioles.supercast.com. It's in the show notes as well. And if you use the promo code FINALLY, you can get a free month of the Locked On Orioles Everydayer Club to check it out and see if you like it. Otherwise, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to the show, follow the show, and leave a 5-star rating and a review if you can on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That really helps us as well. And if you have Orioles thoughts, mailbag questions, want to talk some ball, feedback for the show, whatever it may be, you can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. That's it for today. I'm back tomorrow. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.